Good morning. I'm going to do another video. Okay, this, I promise, this will be the last video on David and Goliath. But there's just so much here, and I want to share it all with you. But anyway, we're going to look at, in the account of David and Goliath, David's conversation and interaction with King Saul before he went out and interacted with Goliath and had the whole sling and rock and all that. So I want us to see a little bit about what's going on here. So I'm in 1 Samuel 17, verse 31. I didn't make slides this time. We're just going to do this quickly here. When the words that David spoke were heard, they repeated them before Saul, and he sent for him. Now, if you remember, David is in the camp and he's seen Goliath come out and have his challenge, and David's asking questions about it and talking to various people about it. Saul hears this is going on, and so he invites David to come and talk to him. Verse 32, and David said to Saul, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine." So David doesn't even wait for an introduction or anything like that, at least not that's given to us in the text. He just says, "I'll take care of this guy for you. No, we don't have to worry about him anymore. I'll deal with it." Verse 33, Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth." So Saul's saying, look, you're just not prepared. You're not equipped. You're not ready. And this is the age-old story of the adult telling the young person, you're not ready yet. You can't do this. Now, someday you'll do great things, but not now. That kind of a thing going on here. Verse 34, but David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep sheep for his father. And when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him." Now, let me talk about that for just a moment, because I want you to help you understand what the shepherds would do. So a lion came and stole a sheep, a bear came and stole the sheep, and yes, there were those animals in that portion of the country back in Bible times. Now today, they've all been hunted to extinction in those areas, and there are none of those things there anymore. But anyway, if one of those animals would come, what the shepherd would do, what David would have done, was take his sling, right, and hit the animal with a sling, with a stone from his sling. Now we see the effect that had on Goliath, and it would have had a similar effect on the animal. So it would have stunned the animal or killed the animal outright. And so then he would be able to take his sheep and rescue it and bring it back to the flock. But if the animal was only stunned and not completely killed, then it got up, it might want to try to attack him. And so what he would do, what the shepherd would do, would be, grab the hair underneath the chin, the beard, he calls it literally there. We have this dog in my house, and it has a beard. I kid you not. This hair growing under here is just the weirdest thing ever. But anyway, a dog with a beard. But he would grab the hair underneath the chin with one hand, and then shepherds, you might remember, shepherds carried two sticks with them, a rod and a staff. Now the staff was what they used to get the sheep out of places where they were stuck or out of holes and those kinds of things, but the rod was basically a club, and they used it against the enemy. So having stuck and hit and stunned an animal with a sling stone, he would have grabbed him by the hair under his chin, taken the rod, the wooden club in his other hand, and beat the thing until it was dead, right? And so David says, I've killed both the lion and the bear in this manner. Okay, verse 36. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. And so David is showing his confidence. I've taken care of these animals. This guy isn't going to be any meaner than a lion or a bear. Verse 37. And David said, the Lord, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear, will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. So again, David points out the fact that he is trusting in God and that it is God. I mean, think about this for a moment. You going to go up against a lion or a bear, with nothing but a sling and some rocks and a wooden club, right? And that's what David said he did. That takes some courage, but it also requires some I guess, care, provision from the Lord. The Lord took care of him. And David says, look, God took care of me with them. He's going to take care of me in this situation as well. And Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. And so Saul says, all right, I'll let you go. And then after this, I'm not going to read it here, is the whole incident with David trying on Saul's armor and saying basically, I'm not used to this stuff. I can't fight in this stuff, and then taking it off. Now, at the surface level, that's the story. David is basically justifying himself, talking about his own preparation and his own skills so that Saul would allow him to go and fight Goliath the Philistine. But there is another level to that whole conversation that is not immediately apparent to us, but would have been and should have been very much apparent to Saul. And here it is. David said, I was the shepherd for my father's flock, for my father's sheep. Now, in the Old Testament, the term shepherd is used for the leaders of God's people, the shepherds of his people. And God himself describes himself as the shepherd for his people. His people, Israel, he is their shepherd. But in a passage in Isaiah, God actually talks about how he is the shepherd of the people, but he shepherds his people through the leader, particularly the king. And so Saul, as the king of Israel, was the shepherd of his father's flock. He's the shepherd of God's people. And so David says, all right, when I was the shepherd of my father's flock, here's how I acted as a shepherd. When there was a danger that came to on my flock, when some kind of enemy came and took some of my flock, I went out personally and I took care of the danger. And I trusted in God to provide for me and care for me and keep me safe. And I did whatever it took in order to kill the enemy and save the flock and keep the flock safe. Now here's Saul sitting in camp for 40 days as the king of God's people with the army of the Philistines right across the valley, and this Philistine giant standing up every day and putting down the Israelite army and making fun and mocking God. And so it's like God is saying through David, Saul, are you going to be my shepherd for these people or not? Saul, are you going to perform your role, or are you just going to sit here? And I think it's highly revealing that at the end of David's discussion about all of that, Saul says, okay, you go out there and you face Goliath. I'm going to stay right here. That I think that was Saul failing in an almost direct confrontation from God through David to do what he is supposed to do. And Saul instead says, David, you go. And as you know, David has already at this point been anointed to be the next king who would follow Saul. That is God's choice for that. And so we see God is with David, and David is able to kill Goliath. And Saul continues to go downhill from this point on through the rest of his kingship as he has rejected God and refused to carry out the role that God has given to him. And so I just think that's an interesting thing that's sort of behind this discussion that we may not have seen at its face value. I wanted you to be aware of it. And I want you to think, is there some responsibility God has given to you? Is there some role that God has given to you that you are not carrying out? Because maybe God is saying to you today, listen, Are you going to be the husband? Are you going to be the father? Are you going to be the mother? Are you going to be the wife? Are you going to be the witness? Are you going to be the person I am calling you to be? He's giving us an opportunity to change. And he's telling us that if we will just engage in those roles that he calls us to, that he will provide the strength and the protection that we need in the midst of those things. So there you have it. I will stop talking about David and Goliath now because we're moving on to the next story, which, interestingly enough, is about Zacchaeus. We're going from the giant to the short guy. So I look forward to talking about that with you on Sunday morning. God bless and have a wonderful day.